So if you remember the last time we were on this call, I was telling you about how the progress we've made so far. Like we built and we've orchestrated a Ghost CMS using using ECS. And I think I did mention that ECS is it's a container orchestration tool. There are a number of container orchestration tools out there like Kubernetes, but honestly, if you grasp ECS, every other container orchestrations will make sense to you. And the reason is because they share the same concept. Every container orchestration tool will have services talking to themselves. There's just they basically have their subtle different, but the way we're approaching it from a concept level, and then we're using ECS to basically practice. And then we said, as much as we've gained a lot, we've done a lot in terms of like using Service Connect, using Cloud Map, using Cloud Map and Service Discovery. We've seen inter-service communication. We've also been able to bring traffic to ECS from the load balancer in the form of ingress. But we said there is more things, right? Sometimes you're also thinking about deployment. And deployment is really very important because sometimes users are using the application and you want to introduce a new change. Every new change is a sort of deployment. And sometimes you're looking at the impact to whoever is using the application, right? Somebody is already live and you're trying to introduce a new change. What should the person see, right? And this is some of the things we identified. We said to some extent we've done containerization because we took the webhooks, we containerized it, we pushed it to ECR. That's the container we're using now. We said IAC to some extent because there's a part of the code that is being handled as infrastructure as code using Terraform. We also said that, and we said now is a good time for us to talk about some other areas that are important to make the entire solution complete. And one of it is really deployment, right? And I'll just explain why deployment is important. So deployment can be you're deploying your changes, right? So your change, when there's a new change, whether you're trying to pretty much, remember, it's a container, for example, that is servicing a web application. That web application, probably developers have made some change. It has to go to production. So at the point where it is being rolled into production, that's a change, right? And change can happen, like it can have a number of impacts. And that's why sometimes your deployment model, it matters a lot, okay? And when you think about it, you're actually considering the user's experience. Whoever is seeing your site, what are they going to be seeing? Is there going to be downtime? Are there times the application is not going to be available? And then you're also looking at live traffic in the sense that what's going to be the impact for the live traffic that is already on your site. And then I was looking at the options for ECS, right? But these things, you find them also in Kubernetes as time goes on. And that's why I said, build the concept, right? So if you pick a different tool, you already have the mindsets, you already have the concept in mind. It's easy for you to replicate it in a different tool. Today, ECS actually supports a number of deployment options, right? The first one is really rolling updates, right? And rolling updates is really the commonest. That's really, for the most part, most people use. So what that does is that, so first of all, let's look at the two categories that we have. There's rolling and there's blue-green, right? Rolling just means at a given time, these two versions, right? Remember, there's already something that is in production and there's a new change coming in, right? Anything you see in the rolling, just know that the customer is likely to see any of the two versions, just so you know, right? The customer is going to see any of the two application versions, right? So it depends because you are actually routing in between the two. So at every given time, the user there is likelihood that the user is going to see the new change or the old change, okay, of the deployment. And I said that kind of differs from blue-green because blue-green, only the blue is serving the real traffic, is serving production traffic, and green is the incoming change, right? So blue is kind of easier to explain in the sense that blue is the traffic serving production and green is the incoming change. And at some point, right, you would have the blue and the green running side by side, right? So the blue is there, the green is there. The beauty of it is that the green can be tested. You can pretty much take the green, run a QA test against the green environment, do a number of things, smoke test, unit test, whatever kind of test you want to run against the green. But just so you know, at that point, the user is not seeing the green at all. It's never going to be shown to the user. But you can see it because you can expose it at a given port and then you can see it. You can test it. You can make sure it's working. So it's a way for you to more or less like isolate your deployment completely. Test it in isolation. And then if you feel it is good enough, you promote it, right? Promotion just means the green becomes the blue. Remember, it can be a bit confusing at some point because when I show you in the practical we're going to do here, you'll be seeing blue change to green, and at some point, green becomes the blue, right? But just so you understand, blue is really live traffic, right? So at some point when green is fine and it's good to go, it still is converted to become the new blue, right? It means if a new change is coming again, it becomes the green. After the promotion is done, it becomes the blue, okay? That's really all you just need to know about blue-green deployment, whether it's in ECS or in Kubernetes. But when you now think about rolling update is a bit different, right? Because you start, all of them, they are blue, right? You start with blue, all the containers are blue, and you're trying to roll in an update, right? Definitely there are knobs for you to control these things, as you're going to see in the ECS console. But the point is that you have like 4 blue containers. So what ECS will basically do, if you choose a rolling update, right, depending on what's the mean percentage health you want to maintain, there's a number of things you can optimize to choose how this rolling update is happening. But what you need to know is that it's going to bring a new green, right, and remove the old blue. It's going to bring in, that's why you see them, it's happening in different iterations, depending on how you tune in it, like how many mean percentage health do you want to keep, for example, right? So there's a number of parameters that you can use, something like mean health percent or the max percent that you want to keep. So more or less like the maximum percentage you can keep and what's the mean health percent, minimum healthy percent that you also want to keep. But the point is that the blue is there, and at every given iteration, depending on what you set, the green is brought in, right? So when the green is brought in, an old blue is let go, right? And that's what you do for each iteration until everything becomes green, right? But one thing you will take note of is that at every given time, have you noticed that the blue and the green, they're still there. They're still servicing traffic. So to the user's perspective, sometimes they're actually seeing green. Sometimes they might see blue. It just depends on where traffic routes them to. And that's it with all the things on the left. At every given time, both versions can serve the traffic, okay? But how you roll it out is just what differs. Rolling update is basically one step at a time. It goes like, it takes a number of, depending on what you configured, it takes it out, it replaces it with a green version, and that's how it goes until it puts in the green. But canary is kind of very different, right? Canary is kind of very different in the sense that you will just, sometimes canary and linear is what confuses people, right? Canary and linear is kind of what confuses people, but I'll try my best to explain what the difference is. For canary, just know that canary, it happens in two shifts. You know, the other one was kind of gradual, right? Gradual. But for canary, it happens in 2 splits. So the first thing is that you set a percentage, right? So how many percent of the traffic should be shifted to the green for how long, right? So here you are saying that, okay, I'm bringing up a new version, and I'm saying for 5 minutes, take 50% of the traffic to the green version. So what it means is that 50% is weighted in such a way that 50% of the traffic will be going to the green, right? So some people will see blue, some people will see green, but just know that after that 5 minutes, the traffic is completely cut to the green, right? You can also have things that happens in the back end for you to validate that things are working as expected, and you can roll that back. But just know that canary, just so you know, is 2 times. Like, it's not multi-steps, it's just 2 steps, right? So for the first step, it is testing a percentage on the green traffic, and then once everything is good, it rolls it over. So just 2 steps. I think that's what confuses some people with canary and linear, okay? When you now say canary is 2-step, meaning for 5 minutes, send 50% of my traffic to the green instance, which is the oncoming change. And then after that 5 minutes, send everything to the green because everything is good, right? So that 5 minutes is, you remember when I said blue-green, the green is there. You can test it, do all your testing against it. And if it's working fine, you point production to green, right? But here you're saying, I just need some time to send 50% of my traffic, and it's good enough for me to test if it's good. And if it's not good, I can roll back. But if it's good, please roll everything to green. So canary is kind of 2-step, just so you know. Like anytime you see canary, it's 2-step, right? 50%, you decide how much of the percentage of the traffic should go to the green, for how long it should happen. But once that is done, all the traffic moves to the green. So it's small initial exposure, then full cutover, meaning you're initially just exposing 50% of the traffic to the green instances. And then once that is done, you cut over, okay? It depends on your use case. Some people prefer to use canary, some people use blue-green, and some people use linear. So what is now linear, right? So when you think about linear at the end of the day is really, you're saying, this is no longer two ways. Like, it's the canary is two, more or less like 2, it's like you're splitting it into 2, right? So 50% for 5 minutes. But remember, those are just numbers. You can tune it depending on your use case. But what is linear? Linear is not like, okay, I have the green somewhere. The blue is also, remember, blue is the current change, the old change. The green is the incoming change. And here you're saying for every 25 minutes, right, send 25% of the traffic every 5 minutes. Have you seen how it differs, right? So what linear is going to do in that sense is that for 5 minutes, it's going to send 25% traffic. In the next iteration, it's going to send 50%, right? Because you said 50% every 5 minutes, right? So it means you send 5 minutes of the traffic. You send 25% of the traffic for 5 minutes. In the next 5 minutes again, you're sending another 25%. That's like 50%. So it's more or less like 25%, 50%, 75%, and like 100%. So it depends on how you set that. That will determine how linear is going to gradually shift the traffic. But if you think about canary and linear, it's all a traffic shifting algorithm, right? It's just like you have the green and you're deciding how traffic is shifted over to it. When you think about rolling update, it's about how the changes are introduced. So you're not doing any traffic shifting there. At every given time, those pods are actually there, those containers are actually there, and the request can land on any of them. Okay. So I hope it makes sense. Traffic shifting happens on canary. It also happens on linear. Just know canary is like two. Like you send 50% or 10% or 15% for 5 minutes to the green. If everything is good, you roll over to the green traffic. For linear, you're doing more or less like traffic shifting at equal increments. More or less like you say 25% for 5 minutes. So to do 25% for 5 minutes. In the next 5 minutes, it's going to add another 25%, 50%. It's going to increase that to 60 to 75. And then at the fourth installment, it's going to do the 100%, right? And then that's when it shifts the traffic to the green. And then the blue, after some while, will be decommissioned, okay? And for blue-green, just know the blue is going to live alongside the green. And then just know that the difference between the both of them is that the green and the blue, the customers can still see on the left. But on the right, only one of them is being seen. And they have their disadvantages and they have their advantages, right? Because for the blue-green, for example, the customers are sure that they can only see the blue until the green is promoted. But for in this case, also, it depends on what you want to do. Maybe you just want to expose quickly. And then if it's not meeting some tests, you just want to roll back. So it just depends on how you want to. But linear is basically shift traffic in equal increment over time. So you're gradually shifting the traffic. And sometimes also, maybe, just like, remember that blue-green, the green, you may not be testing it. Another thing you need to take note of again is that the green, you are not testing it against real production traffic. That's one of the difference between blue-green, right? Because the green that you see there, you probably are not sending it to the user. So you don't know how it's going to behave when the user interacts with it. Maybe it's just you running the test behind the scene. But for canary and linear, that's where it kind of differs because you're actually exposing just a percentage of the traffic to the users. So the users are actually seeing those traffic and you're actually trying to see how is the new change behaving to the user. So it depends. It depends on what you're trying to achieve. One will work for one use case, another is going to work for another use case. But they're all there because somebody was asking why are they all there? They have their reasons. Users will not see the green for the blue-green deployments. They're only going to see the blue. But when you think about canary and linear, the users will see those green and blue. It's just the percentage of the traffic that the user sees is what we are talking about here. For 50%, for canary, they will see 50% for a while. And then after that, all the traffic is shifted to the green. For linear, they will see 25%, for example. At a given time, that number is going to increase until 100% is going to the green. I hope that makes sense, okay? These are all the deployment options, and these are things you're going to see live when you start working with deployment because, you have customers using it. Sometimes you're trying to test customers' impact. Sometimes you're trying to do testing, QA, automation, trying to make sure that the changes are exactly how you want them when they go live, okay? So what are we going to be building today? We're not going to, I think I'll just start with, I'll show you some things about rolling update and see if we can actually test that. But the goal today is really to show you blue-green deployment. But I'm just going to test rolling update, basically. And then I'll just expect that if you actually can do rolling update, you can do the blue-green that I've showed you, then you yourself can actually go into the console and test with canary and test with linear. Because those ones, they don't really need, you just need a set of knobs to actually control them. So it's not hard. It's just what I'm trying to say. So in this call, I'll try to show you a bit of rolling updates, and then I'm going to show canary. This video is really about canary, okay? Canary deployment, because that one is it's a bit tricky. That's the one you need to tune to some extent, okay? So what are we going to be doing? I'm just going to open my, what do you call it? I'm going to open my ID. Like you know, in our ECS series, you know that a part of the things we do some of them on IAC just to limit the things we are doing on the call. So in case you're just joining, there's videos in the past that we've talked about how we set up everything from scratch, okay? So don't feel, if you feel this is kind of like, you don't understand where we're coming from, just check. You'll be able to find the videos I've done to introduce, like how far we've gone, like in the past to get here, okay? And if you remember, in the past, we've been using Ghost CMS, right? But Ghost CMS requires a database. So I'm trying to, in this call, I'm not going to be using Ghost because I don't want to involve the database so that whatever we're building is fast. So what I've actually done is just to bring up a simple service this time. It's simpler than the service we were using before, right? But one thing you notice is that it's kind of similar to the service we were using before. The only difference here is that you can see here there is like a health endpoint /health, right? It's here, and there's like the /home. And what I'm basically doing here is that I'm saying that if the app version, in this case, environment variable that is sent is blue v1, then just render one that has like the blue color, right? Else, let it render something that is a different color. And what we're trying to do there is just for us to see the difference between when it is green that is showing the traffic versus when it's blue. Remember, blue that I mean here is just live traffic, right? Green is always going to be anything that is trying to come in as a change, okay? So it's here, basic stuff, just very, very simple stuff. And here also, it's where we're doing the Docker, right? So we're pulling that main.py file in here. We're exposing it on port 8000. And then we're exposing the app, right? And then we have like a project file that tells it exactly how it's going to more or less like install the packages that we need. For the most part, we need FastAPI, okay? So let's see how we can progress with this. I think we need at least to have a container. All these things can also be CI driven. You can actually have something that creates the repo, creates the repo using using IAC, creates the image using IAC. All that can be done. But just to keep things simple, we're just going to approach it here, do some things manually. So the first thing I'm going to do here is just get my account ID. So I have a command that I'm just going to run. It's very simple command. Let me actually just hide this part so that I have more real estate, okay? So I'm going to run this command. The first thing is just to get my account ID, my current account ID, okay? I already have an AWS profile set up. So I'm just going to do that. It's going to give me my account ID set up. So the next thing I want to do is just set a region that I want to work from, right? So I'm just going to do US West 2. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the repo that I want to create. Again, if you follow the lab for this is exactly the steps that I'm using here, okay? So I'm using the same steps. So the first thing, I'm just setting my AWS account ID in the terminal, the region I want to work from, the repo that I want to use to create, okay? It's all there. The next thing I want to do is to create a repository, okay? So I'm just going to call this command, right? So it's AWS ECR, create repository. And I'm giving it a repo name, telling it the region, and I'm just going to do, I think, but it's done, right? So there's a repo. So if I go to my AWS account now, I'm going to go here, I'm going to refresh this. There's now a repository called FastAPI Blue-Green, right? You know, a repo is just basic, an ECR repo is just a repo where you can upload your images and all that, right? So with that done, the next thing we've done is we will basically log in, okay? So we will log into our ECR using Docker, okay? We'll do Docker login. This is also basic command. We've done this in the past, right? So here I'm just doing login, trying to log into ECR, right? And just make sure I'm authenticated. The next thing I want to do is I want to go into this app directory so that I can build my container, right? Everything we're going to be doing will be ECS based. So I want to basically build the container and push it to AWS, right? So what I'm going to be doing is I'll go here and I'll just run a small command. So first of all, I need to shift to the app directory. So I'm going to shift to app. I'm here now. If I do ls, you see that I have Docker file, I have main.py, and I have that. So I'm just going to run this command. So I'm saying buildx. The platform I'm targeting is AMD64, and I'm saying push it to the repo that we just created. So all that is just, I'm tagging it. I'm basically building, and I'm tagging, and I'm also pushing on the same line, right? So if you look at the command, it's very simple. I'm saying buildx, build for a platform, targets to the account, blue V1. Blue V1, like I mentioned, if you go back to the diagram, blue V1 is really the change. That's where we're starting from, right? And then I'm pushing. Okay, so let's see if this command is going to work. So it's going to do its thing. It's going to, what is a very simple, honestly, it's a simple container. I think you've seen that already. It's just a very simple Python file. We're just doing UV install. We're copying the file over. We're running that file and we're exposing it on port 8000. That's really all we're doing, okay? So nothing, no big deal. So now it's exporting the layers. It's going to do all that. It's sharing the credentials. So, this is basic normal stuff that you're going to do. So I think it's pushed. So let's actually check the console to see if we have an image there. Let's see images. Good. We just built our first image, right? So what we've just done is we created a repository and then we built our first image, in this case, an application, and we've now uploaded it to ECR, okay? So the image is there. And you obviously know that at this point that once your image is on ECR or Docker Hub, whatever it is, it's not a big deal anymore. ECS can take it over from there. And that's ECS in the context of container orchestration. It's there to easily run your containers. In this case, we've built something. We've pushed it to ECR. Let's run it, right? How do we run it? I have a Terraform folder here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to abstract the part that I feel we already know, right? Because if you've joined me on this call, you've seen we know we need a networking setup. So if you go back to our diagram, you know how we got here. So if you've been following me and you've not seen my previous videos, please watch them. But the whole idea is that ideally you need a VPC, you need a public subnet, you need a private subnet. All those things are there. We did set them up at some point. So I'm not going to go into the details, right? But I'm just going to show you what else we are adding. For ECS to work, you have to create an ECS cluster. You have to create a load balancer if it's something you want to expose to the internet. You have to create that integration. So just think about it, that what is in the code now is exactly that. But I'm going to show you once we apply it. So you can see here, it's telling me it's going to apply 34 changes. It's going to apply 34 things. And those things are basically a VPC. It's going to create a VPC for us. It's going to create a load balancer for us. It's going to create an ECS, An ECS cluster. It's going to create one service. And in that service, it's going to point to that container that we just built and published to ECR. Okay. So I think that's basic stuff. If you joined at the beginning, it's part of what we've been doing. Okay. So we are just going to be pushing that. At this point, we already have the container being built. It's published already. And then we have our ECS that will be coming up. So let's check ECS. It's going to take some time. And that's why I actually had to take away the database part of it so that we don't have to start adding like a database that's going to take time. Okay. So this one should be a bit fast because we just have a cluster that's going to come up with one service, and then we can start testing from there. So now it's creating the ECS service. Maybe the NAT gateway is not created yet, so we can do VPC and see. I think it's VPC. We'll go to VPC. We'll check. We will check the NAT gateways. So it's creating. So it's pending. It's creating one for us. And these are some of the things we've also abstracted, right? It's in the diagram, but it's also abstracted because if you use a VPC module and you want to be able to go to the internet, you need a NAT gateway. So all that is being created for us. It's still pending. Let's see also what is being created. So if you check for VPCs, for example, there is like an ECS VPC. This is the one that is created for us. It just basic setup. It has 2 subnets, private subnets, 2 public subnets. The task definitions themselves that we're going to be working with, they will be in the private subnets. And there's a load balancer that is in the public subnet that will bring traffic, right? So those are basic standard stuff that we've done in the past, and we're just repeating it here again now. Okay, so let's actually go and see our EC2 and check our load balancer. But again, remember that the load balancer has already been configured in a way that it knows exactly what to do, in the sense that there is a load balancer here. The most important thing in that load balancer, right now there's no listener rule because it's still creating, but ideally there will be a listener rule which will listen on port 80, right? Because 80 is really what brings the traffic from the internet. It can also be 443 if you want to be an encrypted traffic, but in this case there will be port 80, and it's going to point to a target group, and that target group is actually going to ECS, right? And then ECS will now be the one that is more or less like feeding that target group with the right IP addresses that the load balancer can use to serve traffic, right? So this is like me using this time to more or less like just do a recap of some of the things we've already done on the calls before. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this and see if anything has been added. Like I said, a listener rule has been added, meaning right now the load balancer is expecting traffic on port 80, and it is going to the blue ECS target group, right? The blue ECS target group right now is going to be connected to the ECS service, right? In the sense that the ECS service is going to fill it with IP address, and that IP address is basically what the load balancer will use to serve traffic. Right now, there's nothing here. And the reason is because maybe ECS hasn't come up, it hasn't brought up the task that we need. But all that has been set up. So let's go back to ECS cluster. So we'll refresh. There's a service that has been created now for us, right? If you check task, there is a task that is pending. It's a very simple task, right? We said it's just a very simple task. Run an app. The app itself we built locally, we push to ECR, and we basically have created a task definition, and we've said use this image and give us 3 tasks, right? So if you see, yeah, it's going to provision 3, right? Because that's exactly what is in the code. Because if you check the code, if you check variables that I have here, I said desired count is 3, and there's a reason I'm using 3. Because 3 will make it make sense if you actually want to show the blue-green that I've been talking about in the diagram, right? So 3 is a good number for us to use. So it's still creating, it's still here creating, but it's good for us to know that the first one is running. If we check the logs, let's see the logs and see, fine, we actually have traffic that is being, so our ECS service to some extent is not bad. You can see it in the logs. The logs is clean. So when you see info is good, info is good info. There's no error, right? So what can we go back to do? Can we check the target group now and see what's going on? Yeah, we have 3 things that are now healthy, right? So the 3 IP addresses from the task have been registered with the load balancer, and now these 3 services can actually serve traffic, right? But remember, this is still the blue traffic in the sense that this is really the blue. This is the blue version that is live, okay? So how do we test? We can go to our load balancer, right? We can go, I think this is the load balancer, it's here. We can pick the DNS name and just do what 8 do this, right? 8 blah blah blah. And let's see if I'm picking the right URL. So HTTPS is what you have to take note of that. Right now, there's nothing exposed under HTTPS, right? There's only something listening on 80. So you have to check and be sure that it's only on port 80. So I'll change the port. Yeah. So we are live, right? So the blue is live now. We have like a blue V1 version, right? That's exactly how we designed the task definition. Remember, this is not showing ghost, right? It's still part of the series, but just to simplify things, I'm not using the ghost example here. I'm basically just using, I'm using just using a plain container that we can easily just test, okay? So we have the blue. The blue is running at this point. So like I said, I think I mentioned that for rolling updates and blue-green, rolling updates, linear, and linear and canary, I said that they are basically configuration driven. So there's not a lot for you to do. You just need to configure how it works, right? But if you look at the algorithm that we showed on the diagram, it paints a picture of exactly how these things work, right? Rolling updates is basically one at a time, right? Depending on how much you specify, right? Canary would do traffic shifting in 2 increments. So the first time it's going to send a percentage of the traffic for a given amount of time. And then after that time, it sends all the traffic to the green, right? Remember, what is still live is blue. We've not introduced a new chain, right? It's still really the blue. So right now, we are not doing anything deployment. Okay, so what can we now do? Remember I told you that before we go into blue-green, maybe we can just look at rolling update and see exactly how it works, right? So what we can do is we can go back to that service, right? So we can go back to, so right now it's good news. The load balancer is having the traffic, and you can actually see it using the load balancer, right? Or from ECS. So what can we do? We can actually go back to the load balancer in this case, not the load balancer. We can go to ECS. We have 3 tasks running, right? So we have tasks 1, 2, 3. If I refresh, they're all running. They're all in a good state. So what we can basically do here now is to update the service, right? So we can go and do more or less like we'll talk to the service. We'll click on the service. We'll update the service. In this case, what can we do? Remember, today is really all about deployment, right? Right now, it's actually rolling update, right? That's really what it's doing. And it says min run percentage, meaning specify the minimum percentage of running tasks allowed during service deployment. Basically, how much of the percentage of the traffic, the running task is allowed during deployment. So if you say 100, it just means that, 100 has to be running, right? And then you're also saying max. Max is basically max. It means here it says 200%. It just means that you can actually, it's like you can double your deployment. That's what it means here, right? So it means that you can actually have max of the deployment number running. So if you have like 3 specified, it means that you can actually expand that to 6 to actually cater for your deployment need, right? But one thing you just basically need to know is that at every given time for rolling updates, there's really the 2 versions running at the same time, right? So what we can do, we can basically do something like, okay, max running task is 200%, it's fine. If you check the details, there's some math here where sometimes it's like one, there's some little details here, right? But one thing you need to know about the main really is like the lower limit for tasks that remain in a running state, right? So when you say 100%, you're basically trying to say that I can never go the capacity. Remember, 3 is what we specify. So when you say you want minimum running tasks to be 100%, that means at every time 3 must be running, regardless of how you treat this deployment. I want 3 to be running, right? So, so you can do all that. So that's why it says allows deployment without additional cluster capacity by stopping tasks first. So what it means is that the minimum, if it's 3, that means you have to pretty much bring up something new before you can stop. Because if I already have 3 and you have to pretty much bring in new stuff, then you cannot go above a certain threshold, okay? So when we now think about this, what do you think we can do? So maximum running task here, we say 200%. That means we're saying that we are saying more or less like the maximum running percent is 200. 200 of like 3 is like you can double it to 6, right? So a good example, what I'm just going to do is actually want this to be a very easy example for us to reproduce. But if I refresh, it has been updated. I'm going to increase the desired count to 4. And there's a reason I'm doing that. So that it's easy, the math, I want the math to be easy. Here, I'm just going to do ECS desired count. Did I save this change? I did not. That's why it's complaining. But I could have done this in the console as well. But here, I'm just going to do it for now. And just update the count to more or less like 4, okay? And then once it's there, you're just going to do yes. I think this is going to be a simple change, but what will happen now is that there will now be one more task coming up, right? So this is 3, there'll be a new one, okay? Once it's live. So let's see. I think that would have affected the task. In this case, I think it's basically the desired count. So let's find it. It's basically the service. So what we can do is that we can actually redeploy. So right now it's not going to deploy. That change is not going to be in place. But we can actually, okay, so there's one change coming in, right? So because we updated the service, not the task definition, the service is pending. So now you can see the 4th one is coming in because that's exactly what we said. We wanted 4 tasks running. So it's bringing the 4th one. So now that the 4th task is actually running, what next do we do? We can now play with the things we talked about before. So let's go back to that service. We'll go to here, we'll do update the service. What we can now do is we'll go to the deployment option. Here, I want to more or less like do something, right? So I'm saying 100% at most times. So meaning 4 tasks has to be in a running state, right? And I'm saying the max here is if I have 4 in a running state, and I'm saying the max can only be 200%. That means at some point you can actually have 8 running. But I want to trim that down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 125%. Okay? So 125%. Do you know what this will tell you? If you do 125% of 100, so that's like 125 divided by 100 times 4 is what? What do you think that's going to be? That's going to be 5, right? So I'm saying, in this case, I'm actually saying that the max that I want to run is going to be 5. So what do you think how do you think that's going to affect the deployment? It means that it's going to do it 1 at a time, right? So because, yeah, I'm saying the max can only be 5, and I say I need at least 4 running. It means it will only go 1 at a time. So take 1 and bring in 1, right? Because I need 4 to be running. I need it to run at the maximum. So like I mentioned, you can right now I'm saying minimum running task 100%, meaning I did mention 4, right? I said 4 tasks should be running, and yeah, I'm saying that it should never go below that 4. 100% is really the minimum task, right? So if you say 4 tasks running, which is exactly the case right now, what we are saying is that we're preserving that minimum 100% to keep running, right? So that's really what we're doing. We're preserving that 100% to keep running, and we're saying the max that you can go is 125%. You also more or less like limiting the ceiling, right, for that particular service. What you're trying to say there is that you're saying you can't go above 125%. That means at every time there will only be 5 tasks running. So it means you can only bring in 1 if that one is green. So it brings in the green 1. So that would almost look like something like this, right? So here it's going to come in, it's going to bring in a new one, and then it's going to get rid of the old blue, right? Now, I mean, depending on the configuration you do, this is 4. That means it's going to bring 5, right? So it's going to bring in 1 green. And then once that green is live, because we said you can't go above 4, then it's going to terminate 1 blue, right? But let's see it in practice. So what we can actually do is we can actually go, it's fine, this is good. We have 125 as the max, and then we're going to update it. So the service has been updated, right? So if you go back to the deployment, it's basically we're saying, so this is where you can also tune how that deployment can work, right? So you can do blah, 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 deployment option, you can do rolling updates, you can do max, minimum, and max 125. So how will that affect the traffic that we have? So what we can do is we can go back to the variable, right? We can actually go back to the variable in this case. Maybe I should do that from the UI. Okay, so because we're already in the UI. So what I can do is that I can go back to the task definition, right? Remember the container, what do you call it? The definition for the app version is actually on the task container. It's actually on the task definition. So I can go here, I can create a new revision. And that's where I can scroll down to say, I want to change the container and that environment variable, right? So this is app version, and I'm saying blue v1. There are other values it can be. So for example, I think in the variables, I did mention that it can be green v2. So let's try and say green v2, right? Remember, we're still not doing blue-green yet, okay? But I just want to pretty much just give you some details about like how rolling update works, okay? So I can do green v2. And then if I do green v2, I can basically do create a new revision. So I'm just going to do this. I'll create a new revision. Once I create a new revision, the next thing I want to do is check my task definition, check this one. There's now a new revision that is 3. Now I want to create a new update for that deployment to like more or less like the new version to become live. So what I can do is go to clusters, go here and do, let's go to the service itself, more or less like this one, and then do update service. We will do a new deployment. In this case, we're going to choose the 3rd one, which is the latest, right? So we'll do a new deployment. We're just going to update it. So what we're trying to do is that we're trying to do a deployment now. So when we do that deployment, what do you think is going to happen? If you check the task, we have 4 that is running. And we've told ECS that the minimum that should be running is 4. The maximum that should be running is 5. We control that with percentages, but we know exactly what it's going to look like. So the minimum is 4, the maximum is 5. What do you think is going to happen? It's only be bringing the green one step at a time, right? So if you refresh, you can see it's provisioning 1, right? So we said the maximum can only be 4 that is running. So in this case, it's going to provision 1. It's going to provision. Remember, this is green, right? So if we do this, spending, it's going to do its thing. It's going to do its thing. So let's just wait. It's activating. But if we keep refreshing this, I'm not sure if it's going to show up because sometimes load balancers can also be sticky. So, but if I keep refreshing this, right? I keep refreshing this. Can you see? Did you notice? We've seen the green version, right? And that's what I was trying to explain to you. That can you see the blue green? You can see we're not doing blue green here, but you can see that both versions are actually handling traffic, right? So if you scroll so many times, sometimes you want this, sometimes you don't want this because you don't know the green that is coming. You don't even know if it's working as expected, but now the user is already seeing it, right? And that's because if you look at the way it is activating, it has activated 5, right? So that's the maximum it will have to go to. And now it has to bring in one of these ones, right? It has to bring it down before it can go further. So if we do, there's 5 tasks running. Let's refresh and give it some time. Let's give it some time because this is the max we said, right? We said the min is 4, the max is 5. It has gotten to its max now. What do you think it's going to do? It's going to deactivate 1. So it has to stop one of the old blue ones, right? So it has to stop them for it to be able to continue because of the configuration we have in place. That's what really rolling updates does. But what I'm trying to tell you for the most part is that if you check the 2, they are both serving traffic. So the green is serving traffic now, the blue is serving traffic, right? So the blue is there, the green is there, the blue is there, the green is there. Depending on who is using the traffic, you can either see each of the 2 versions, right? So it's there, blue, green, blue, green, blue, green. Good. And it's not blue, green deployment. We're not talking about blue, green here. We're just saying for the rolling of the rolling side of things. So when you do rolling, the users will always see the blue and the green, right? No matter what, whether you're using canary or you're doing linear. The only true time that users can only see blue at every time is when you're doing blue-green deployment, okay? So we've seen that. So if you refresh, blah, 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 you will see green, you see blue. So there's not much to say around there. So even if you change these, so it's going to take its time. This is going to be a slow deployment. Again, it depends, right? Because you said you can only, the minimum has to be 100%, the max has to be 125. So it means it has to do one step at a time, right? It's going to be taking one container. It's going to bring in one container, replace it with another one, like that, like that, like that. So that's how you can tune the, what do you call it? So it has stopped this, it's deactivating it. After it's done with this one, it's now going to bring up a new container, right? So it's going to bring up a new one, replace the old one, bring up a new one, replace the old one. So it's going to be doing that, right? But you can even see, even though we have just one task on the green right now, we're already seeing it. It's already handling traffic. So nothing is stopping it. So this one went to the blue container, the green container, I mean, right? While these ones are going to the 3 other blue containers. And just one container is already serving the green traffic, right? The green V2. So let's see. If we refresh, it's still deactivating. It stopped, it's deactivating. It's going to take some time. I think there is basically like a deregistration period. That's it's usually takes some time to deregister, right? So it's going to do that. So this deployment is going to take time. Those are also one of the trade-offs you have to consider when you're rolling out, because sometimes you're thinking about how the deployment model is going to be, how deployment is going to be, or how it's going to, like how it's going to work. Sometimes you choose a method, it's a bit slow, because in this case, this deployment is slow. It's going to be slow because now we're doing one task at a time. That's the way it is. But maybe your use case is good. Like maybe you don't want more than one container taken away. Sometimes maybe you're okay with 50% being out. Right? There are times where you want to do that. But after this, it's going to take time. So it's deactivating. Basically going to do this. Yeah, we just have to give it some time. But it's going to deactivate. After deactivating, then it's going to start bringing up another one again. Honestly, it's following our instruction. It's still how we configure things to work. Okay, so let's refresh this and let's do this and see. Right now, it's still just one container that is on the green, so just this one. So let's wait. Let me also go to the load balancer. There is a configuration of load balancer. If you go there and you do blah, 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 where is that again? You go to, I think it's the target group. And you do, right now it's 4, it's healthy. This is, target deregistration in progress, right? So there's a deregistration going on. So what we can basically do is we can attribute, we can edit that deregistration period. So here, 300 seconds. Maybe, honestly, it's too far from me because I'm trying to really show stuff. And I think at the end of the day, this is too much. And just for us to be able to do it fast. So I'm just going to do 10 seconds, okay? It depends on your application, but here I'm just doing 10 seconds just for it to deregister fast because we don't have any important thing we're doing. So I'm just going to save the changes, and I think probably our services are going to deregister fast. So let's give it some time, because if we have to go with that 300 seconds, it will take that delay and take its time to deregister, and then that's when it's going to let it go. But now that we've edited it, let's see if the other ones are going to be fast. So what we can now do is, let's see, it's running. So we now have like 1, 2, 3, 4 task 3 running. So you know that we said we only want 4 running. So it means once we get to a point where only 3 tasks are running, then we're good. It means that nothing else is going to be deployed again because we've gotten to our full stop, right? So it's activating, it has stopped these ones. This is running. I think once it's done with this one, because we know the maximum task that we need is really 4. We want 4 running. So if it has already provisioned 3, 3, 3, 3, then it has finished its job. It's just going to probably deactivate this one, right? But what that tells you is that the more you do that, the more green you begin to see and the less of the blue. Before we're seeing more of the blue, less of the green, but now we'll be seeing more of the green and less of the blue, right? Good. So what we can basically do now is to refresh. Let's go back to the service. Just be sure it's running. Now it's running. So we now have like 4 tasks running. So 1, 2, 3, 4 running the green. So if we refresh, I think it's just going to tear this down because we don't need this again. It has already replaced this now. So it stopped this one. It stopped this one also. Let's see. Let's give it some time. It's going to stop this one also. But if you understand this, is it auto tear down? Yes, it's auto tear down. That's exactly what it does. It brings up a new version. If that version is fine, if it's working as expected, it brings up an old, like a basically, if the container is running, it tears down the old version. That's what rolling update does, right? It brings up, but this is controlled by the main health percent that we saw and the max, right? So in this case, we've said the main should always be 4. 4 should always be in the running state, and the max should be 125%, meaning you can only add one more on top of 4, right? So we're saying 4 is running, add one more. So at every given time, it will be juggling between 4 running, adding the 5th one, and then tearing down 1 from the 4, right? So it's just like 4 is running to bring up the 5th one. Once that 5th one is running, it's going to tear down 1 from the 4, because that's how it has to work. So if we refresh, it's gonna stop. This is the last one. You can see it stopped the last one, and that's it. So now we now have all the 3 green. Do you think we're going to see any of the blue again? No blue again. No blue again. No blue again. It's going to be completely green, because all the blue, they've been gone, right? But it still doesn't solve the exact problem that we're trying to talk about. The fact that each of them will still have to more or less like serve the blue. The blue. Each of them will serve, like this deployment model is still going to serve both traffic, like green and blue, right? So, which is what blue-green is trying to solve, saying, no, we don't want the customers to see the blue. Rather, we don't want the customers to see the green. Rather, we want them to only see the blue, and then want to put green somewhere else that only us can see, and we can test. And if it's fine, we say, yes, it's good to go, okay? But I think at this point, deployment is done. So if we go back to the test, the deployment is good to go. Now we only have all our 3 running tasks, and it's all green. Good, perfect. So what I'm also now going to do is I'm just going to do, so let's now begin to think about how do we need to ensure blue-green, right? Because for blue-green, there is the live traffic, but there's also going to be a test traffic, right? The test traffic is where you are following to test the green version that is coming. So that's what we're going to start with. So we'll go to the load balancer. Right now, we only have one target group, and the target group is going to blue, right? We know we need more. We need more than that for that to happen. So we have ECS target group blue. So what we can basically do is that we can create a new one. So we'll just go here and do actions. We'll go to target group, we'll create a new one, right? We'll say it's IP addresses, right, that we're going to be using. In this case, we want to call it the green, right? Because if we want to do blue-green deployment, we have to have a target group that is green. So we'll do this, will be green, green, okay? And the protocol is HTTP. The port will be, so this is really target group. So the port will be 8,000. That's where the ECS service is hosted, right? So it's 8,000. The VPC, not the default. We're going to choose our own VPC, right, that we created. The HTTP one is what we're going to use. Health check is fine, just the way it is. HTTP. Let's actually see the old target group that we have. So this target group is here. We basically have it set on, let's see, attributes. We basically have it set, so it's going to be the same. We're basically going to create a new one. Advanced health check. I think I'm just going to change this. I'm going to do healthy threshold is maybe 2. I'm just going to reduce this so that interval, maybe 5 seconds, something like this. Success code is 200. Let me do next, and it's going to complain and tell me, okay, so it's not complaining. So what I'm going to do here is just, we've already created a target group. So in this case, we're creating a target group for the green, right? So we're using the more or less like the VPC that we have. The port is this. We don't need to register a target to it, right? We don't have to, because it has to be enabled on the ECS side of things, right? So we'll just create this and say next. What else? We'll create a target group. So interval every 5 seconds on healthy threshold, timeout 2 seconds. Right? We just reduce all those numbers basically. But we can now create a target group. So we now have 2 target groups, right? So one is green, one is blue. The green, the blue is really the blue, serving production traffic. What we're not trying to set is basically the green traffic, right? So let's see. So we're trying to set up the blue. So let's see if it has created. Why is it taking time to create the target group? Are we still here or what? Yeah, so it has created. We don't have any target, which is fine. So we don't have any target that is there, and it's fine. So we've created a target group, right? We've created a target group. Now we also now need to create a listener for the green, right? So we have a target group for the green, but how do we reach there from the load balancer? Because the point is that if the blue is the one servicing traffic, right? If the blue is the one servicing traffic, we also want the green to be able to serve traffic, but not to the end user, rather to something that we can test. So we need to create a listener that is going to target the the blue target group, the green target group. Okay. So right now we just have listener on port 80, right? So if you refresh, there's only one listener. We need to add a listener. This time we are saying, how do you want to test the green version, right? So we're going to test that, and we're going to say 8080. Maybe 80 is for blue live traffic, and 8080 will be for the test traffic, which is the green version, right? So what we are going to be doing, we're going to say forward to target group. Which target group are we forwarding to? We're forwarding to the green. Please take note. The green is really the change that is coming in. The blue is the existing change, okay? So the green is really what is coming in. So we're going to say we're forwarding it to the green target group, right? So what else are we going to be doing? Here, we basically can use percentage or the weights. Percentage is 100%. We don't really need to do any other thing. Listener tags, service type, I don't know. We don't need all these things, right? So we can do 8080, blah, blah, blah. We just add listener. So now we've added a listener. We're just saying that port 8080 should forward to, the green target group, right? It can be confusing, but just know that the blue is servicing traffic. The green is the incoming change code. So we now have that running, right? So we have two target groups, right? This one is forwarding to green, this one is forwarding to blue, right? What we now need to do for this to work also is that we need to add some listener rules, right? So if you check the listener rules right now, there is like a listener rule in this case. Basically, let's see, listener. So load balancers, we're here. Listeners and listener rules, we're basically here. But if we click the first one, which is the blue, right? The blue, the one servicing traffic, because it's going to service both the real-time traffic and the, and the test traffic also at some point. Remember, when the green becomes, if the green starts working, and you have to promote it to become the blue, it means the blue listener should also be able to forward traffic there, okay? So what we're going to do is that we're going to do default action here. We're going to go to that listener, right? And then we'll look at the rules, right? There is a default rule here, but we're going to add a new rule. Here we're saying the blue is really the live traffic. You are the one handling live traffic, but at some point you should also be able to handle the traffic that is coming from the green side of things, right? So what we're going to do is that we'll add a rule. In this case, it basically is still there. The only difference we're going to do here is that we are going to say condition. We're just going to say this is start, like everything, basically everything, just you're handling everything, and your priority here is where we're going to set the priority just to show the importance. But what we are saying is that send your traffic, your primary traffic, to the blue target group, right? So blue, the weight is 1, percentage is 100. So everything, basically, remember the default rule is there. If no rule matches, it goes to the default, right? So what we're going to do now, we're setting a rule specifically to say the blue, please always go to this target group for everything. Then we'll go and adjust the default to go to the test, to the green side of things, okay? You may have to rewatch this video or try it out yourself for you to grasp it. But once you grasp it, just understand that the live traffic at some point will also serve the green version, right? So it means it has to have a listener rule that supports that, okay? And then the test listener rule is just there for purely to test the test version, okay? So what we're now going to do here is we are going to say, so matching everything. So the path condition is star everything, right? So you can say star everything is equal to that, and we're just doing action forwarded to the blue target group. And I think that is really it, everything that we need to do. So let's see, priority, if there is a place, let's see, the weight is 1, the percentage is 100. We can do this, we can do next. And this is where we set the priority, okay? So I want this to really take priority. So I'll give it 1. Okay, so 1 to this. I'll just do next, and then I'll just do add rule. Okay, so we've added a rule. So now when you now see the rule, you see the priority. The first rule is saying everything, please forward it to the blue target group, right? But now I want to also now update the default rule, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update the default rule, and I'm going to say edit the rule, and instead of you to forward to the blue like we had it before, I'm going to change it to the green, right? So now I'm saying default should be blue, and default should be blue, but you can also service default should be blue, right? But you can also service the green traffic in this case. So I'm saying default should be blue, but you can also service the green. But remember, it's on port 80. Remember, and the green, because at some point AWS is going to swap it for us. AWS is going to pretty much swap it. So in this case, I'm just saying the target group, the listener should also support both. So, but just know that for the most part, it's going to pretty much always show the blue, unless that changes behind the scene. Good. So we are just going to say these changes. So take note of it. The default has been moved to forward to the green, while the priority one that we created is now forwarding to the blue. Okay. So we're going to save the changes, right? So now we now have 2 rules. The rules are simple. One is the one that is really the primary one. It forwards to the blue. The second one is really the fallback, right? And it forwards to the green, right? So cool. So what we can now do is we can now basically do, what can we do now? So what we can do is we can basically go back. So we have blue here, we have green here, and we also have the listener set up correctly, right? So if we go back to the load balancer, we go to listeners rules, like listener, and we check, we'll see that 8080 is really simple. 8080 down, you don't have to stress. It has to always forward to the because it's like an isolated traffic. So it has to always forward to the, what do you call it, to the green version, right? The green version, which is the incoming version. So that one, just know that the only difference is that the main traffic should have rules, listeners, pretty much rules for both the green and both the blue. Okay, but for the test traffic, it should always forward to the, what do you call it? It should always forward to the test traffic, which is the green one. Okay, and you can also make reference to this diagram if you feel confused. But just know that the blue is really the live traffic, the green is the incoming traffic. Okay, we've sorted that one now. So we now have those 2 rules. What else should we do? We basically should be able to go back here, and the next thing we want to do now is I think there's a rule that we need to create. So I'm going to create an IAM rule, because let's try to update our deployment type. So what we're going to do is that if we try to update this service now, like we update the service and we try to change the deployment options from rolling update to a blue-green deployment, let's see what it's going to be asking for us, right? So if we go back to the load balancer, there are a number of things we need to provide. So it's going to use an application load balancer. It needs a role, right? That role, I already have it, but it's not hard. So I'm going to look for that role so that you see what I created. Okay, so if you actually see that role, it's just a very simple role. Okay, so let me just show you what that role will look like in case you're trying to create it yourself. It's just a simple role that needs to have just one policy. So if you go here and you go to roles, if you search for that role, I've created it already. I just basically called it Amazon ECS infrastructure role for load balancer. And the reason is because, so the permission it needs this Amazon ECS infrastructure role policy for load balancers. That's all. Just a managed policy, attach it to it. Create a role, attach this policy to it. And then when you check, what does it do? It basically can describe the role, it can do all these things, right? And then it can also register targets. It can deregister targets, right? And then it can modify listener, which is the most important thing. Because at some point, this ECS is going to do it for you. It's going to do it on your behalf. So this is where we are giving it that permission to be able to do it on our behalf. So it's going to be able to modify the listener and everything, basically all the listeners. Remember, we created a listener just now, right? We created a listener somewhere and we're able to put rules in place. But now, this service, ECS, can actually modify that at the back end, okay? So with that in place, we have a role already. Just in case you're watching this video, create a role, call it whatever you want to call it, and just give it this policy. So Amazon ECS infrastructure role for load balancers. That's basically all you need to do. Once you have that in place, that means we are fine to now do a rolling of a blue-green deployment, right? We already have an application load balancer we're using. We already have a load balancer internet facing. The listener now is where you need to configure, which is what is going to be the listener for the, what do you call it, for the live traffic. So the listener is 80, right? We know that already. 80 is going to be the live traffic. That's really where traffic is still going to come from. What is the listener rule for the live traffic? It's going to be the one we created, right? The one with priority, start everything, right? That's the one we created. So that's the listener rule that is going to be there. But remember that it still has a default to fall back at some point, but it's fine. We chose the priority one to be that rule. Good. So what is going to be our test listener? Our test listener will now be 8080, right? So we created one. Remember, we created an 8080. We didn't put anything in there, but we created a listener for 8080. What is going to be the test listener rule? We can use the default. We didn't really create anything there, right? We'll do this. And this is where we choose the green target group, right? So here we'll do option, use to existing target groups, because we created it in the backend. But you can also do create a green target group. But here we created it. And that's the reason is because if you check the infra as code, I created it as infra as code also, right? Because you can take control of it. So in this case, we're saying use two existing target groups, and it's here. And then we're going to choose the green. So it means the blue is the blue, the green is the green. We've created those target groups already. ECS is smart enough to know when to do magic when the time comes, right? So we will do that. And then what we are going to do is to say that, I think, yeah, we're fine. We've basically set up everything that we need. So the 80 is going to receive the real traffic. The priority is still, this one is chosen. And the reason you should also understand is that this is now the live traffic. This is the one that powers 80, everything. But it knows how to switch, because the default, we still make sure the default is pointing to the green, right? That's one of the things you need to take out from this. So we have that in place. So what we can now basically do is we can just do next, and that's it. We've set it up for blue-green, right? So we'll update. The service has been updated. We need to actually add a different rule, okay? So we're just going to add a different rule here for the main traffic, right? So that we can actually test it in isolation. So the blue should actually go, the green traffic should actually go to the green target group, okay? So we'll do green target group, the weight is 1. We're going to do next, for example, the condition. What's the condition now? We'll add a condition. We'll just do path, right? So everything that's star, okay? And then we're going to do next. And then what we are going to do, priority is 1. And then we're just going to add the rule, okay? I think this is what is missing. This is 8080 should actually not target the live traffic. It should always target the test traffic, right? Because that's exactly what you want. So you shouldn't target live traffic. So this should always target the test traffic. This should always target the live traffic, right? So this is blue, and this is green. This is blue, yes, and this is green. So green right now, nothing is servicing it, right? Nothing is currently servicing it because we've tweaked the rule. So the way it works is that you have to create the test listener should actually have a rule that sends it only to the test traffic, right? So which is what we have here. So right now it's not going to work, but this is always going to work. So now let's try one more final time to more or less like do what is going to happen if we actually want a full deployment to happen. So what we can do now is that we can go back to that service. Remember that version 5 is still trying to bring in the green. So what we can do is go back to load balancer, the services themselves. So ECS, we'll go back here. And then what we can do is now production is back to blue, right? It's back to blue. You can see it because we rolled it back, right? And our 8080 is now forwarding to something that feels it doesn't exist. But yes, because that change never came to life, right? So we refresh, it's no longer there. So how do we test it now? So what we can basically do is that we can now go back to the service. Where is it? The service is here. So what we can basically do now is we can actually now run a new deployment. So let's go back to our service. The service is here. The deployment is here. It was rolled back. We had our reasons why we did that. But now let's actually now roll in the deployment. So we'll update the service. We're moving it to a new. Remember, 6 has been rolled back, right? But 5 is still the one we're trying to bring in, if you remember correctly, right? So the 5th revision is the one that has the green that we're trying to introduce. So let's go back to it, right? And that's the beauty of the things. These things are all version, and you can move from one version to the other. So the task definition revision that we're going back to is 5. So we will do, because we know 5, if you go to task definitions and you go this one and you check 5, 5 is the one that has the container definition for, what do you call it? So it has that JSON. If you check there, you would see that the environment variable, it has the green v2 that we want, right? So let's do it again. So what we can do now is we can take our service, go back to the cluster, and go to that service. And in that service, what we want to now do is actually update the service. This time, we want to go back to that revision again because now we feel it should work again as expected, right? The bake time is fine. We can leave it as 10 minutes, right? We're just going to update it. And now let's refresh. Let's give it some time. None is pending, right? But now there's a deployment in progress, right? So we're trying to go to 5. So if you go to a task, refresh, we give it some time. This is still 4 running. It's still running task 4. Let's give it some time and see what happens. Let's refresh. Nothing is happening yet. So deployment is in progress. Yeah, one is pending, right? So now 1 is pending. What's that one that's pending? It's the 5th one. How do we see the 5th one? So when it comes live, how do we see it? So these 2 are the green ones. They will always be served from the home traffic. It's still going to be green. You can never get to blue. But this right now is doing service unavailable. But once one of those tasks starts working, what do you think is going to happen? So right now it's still showing provisioning, activating. Nothing is still happening yet. But 1 is running now. I can see 1 is now running, right? So it means this should show green, right? Yeah, so this is showing green. This will always show blue until the cutoff happens. This is exactly what I wanted to show you. So this is always going to show blue, 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 blue. There's nothing you can do about it. This is always going to show green, 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 green. Nothing you can do about it. So here, you can send test here. You can send your QA to test the green version. Test it. Green is just what is coming in, right? So test the green version, do anything they want to do, blah, blah, blah. But one thing you notice is at some point, this is going to change to green. This is going to cut over, right? It's going to cut over to green. And then you're just going to wait for the bake time for it to terminate the old version, right? So if we keep refreshing this, at some point, this is going to change to green. But just know that this is always going to show the incoming change so that you can test it in isolation. So you can see it here. It's always going to be green. This will always be blue. Maybe to change to green at some point. So let's actually check the service and see what's going on. So it's pending. 0 is here. 8 is running. The deployment is still in progress. Let's refresh. This is still going to be green, right? It's always going to be green as expected. So this is going to be, let's check the deployment. So there's a deployment that is in progress. So the production traffic is still the blue target group. So if you check it, that blue target group is still here. It's healthy. They're like, instances that are there that are servicing that traffic. So what we're just going to do is we're just going to give it some time. Just going to, so product. So current stage, you can see production traffic shift, right? This is also where you can see the lifecycle hooks. Right? A lot of things are happening that we're not seeing behind the scene. But here you can see it. You are seeing production traffic shift. That's the stage it is, right? So, and that's what the hook I was showing you just now. You see production traffic shift, right? So this is also where you can intercept that what is happening. So now it has actually shifted. If it says post production traffic, so now it's back to bake time. So this was really nice. I was on this page to capture this, right? So it's back to bake time. Bake time just means it has shifted the traffic to production. It's just waiting for the bake time to pass, and then it's going to tear down the new instance, right? So what do you think this is going to show? This is going to show green now. If you refresh, green, right? And then this is still always going to be green until it is turned down. So if you give this 10 minutes later, this is going to be terminated. Okay? So that's basically blue, green in a nutshell. But again, I wanted to really start from rolling updates for you to see how it translates to blue, green if you actually want to do that. But just know that for the other ones, for the rolling side, it's always going to be one, both versions can be seen. But here, only one version can be seen, the version that is in production. In this case, we didn't do anything. We didn't really put any lifecycle hook. And that's why you are noticing that it's happening like magic behind the scene. But actually, when you check the real service, many things are happening. So you see now it's bake time. Bake time is just, okay, we've shifted traffic to production. We're just waiting for some time, right? And after that bake time, it's going to terminate the new instances that came up. And, and then this is no longer going to show anything again. Right now, it's still showing because this is the change that we introduced to production. It's now live here. But after the bake time, that production is going to be terminated. Okay, so it's worth knowing. So just so you know, if you check the listener rule, 2 things. Let's revisit what we did, right? There were 2 listener rules, right? This is one of the most important concept parts you need to understand. There were 2 listener rules. 80 targeted green. Forget about what you see here because ECS is playing with it. But 80 target blue. When you define it from the beginning, that's what you should do, right? 80 will target blue, ECS knows how to turn things around, but AT will target blue. And then, so inside of AT, you also have to create two rules, right? Number one is the one with priority that should go to blue. The default should go to green, right? That's exactly how it should be. Then for the AT, which is the test, you have to create, most importantly, you have to create a rule that says pretty much go to, a rule that has priority one that has to go to, the test instance also, which is exactly what we did. But now ECS is actually moving them around just to please the real life traffic, okay? So, but again, that is good. If you give it some time, everything will be fine. You can see AT is sending to green, which is exactly what we want, but AT has now been changed to also send to green, right? So both of them are sending the same, but after a while, after the bake time is just in progress. After that bake time, the blue is going to be turned down completely, and then the green would only be turned down, and then only the blue will be servicing traffic. Okay. I think that is pretty much it. Just to go back to the diagram, just so you understand, I'm not going to stress about talking about the rolling options. You can try it out if you want to. I think we did the rolling update, but I'm just trying to tell you that in any of those ones you pick, the user is seeing both traffic, right? And then if you go blue-green, the user is only able to see one of the versions that are coming in at a time, right? Rolling update is gradual, right? Depending on how you set your configuration. For canary updates, it's basically 50% or percentage at a given time. So just the way we have it, the green is set up, and then a percentage of the traffic is tested, 50% over the course of 5 minutes is tested, and if everything works fine, it moves everything to green. While for linear, it is that same percentage, or the percentage at a given time is sending it until it can send 100% to the green instance. Okay, I think that is it. That is really it's kind of like to some extent, if you grasp the concept, it becomes very easy. Deployment is a huge issue. Like when it comes to when you start working, like it's a huge domain when it comes to DevOps cloud engineering, because everything you see out there, right, goes through a deployment. Everything you see, whether it's TikTok, whether it's all the applications you see there, depending on the orchestration platform, it goes through a deployment. And once you understand the concept, if you go to Kubernetes and you're working with Kubernetes or go to another tool, it's the same. You just basically now need to know, okay, how am I implementing it here? So the tooling is not the problem. It's just your understanding and why one approach is better than the other, right? Because we've seen that for blue-green, two versions completely independent. But for the other ones, right, it's basically the users. The only difference with blue-green, like I think I mentioned it, but I'm repeating it again, is the fact that you can't really test your production. Sometimes it's hard to test it against live traffic, right? Because the users are not seeing that green. So the users are not going to see it. But for the other ones, the users are still seeing both traffic. Okay. Yeah, that's really the deployment side of things that I wanted to talk about in addition to what we've already built. But just know that it's all on top of the building blocks that we have, right? Setting up ECS, setting up a task definition. We've already done that in the past, and here was just a way for us to put everything together and see how deployment can actually happen where there is no downtime for the end user, right? If we go back to the service, I'm not sure what is happening here, but if I refresh the big time, I don't know if it has happened, but the big time is still there. It's going to take some time, but just know that at some point, if I refresh these, it would have happened, right? So yeah, this will no longer appear again because the big time is over. Okay. So let's see. What else do we need to do? I think at this point, I think we're good. We just need to tear down. Okay. There's no point waiting for the big time to happen. And the beauty of it is we didn't really create anything from infra as code. We didn't really create anything from the repo apart from the ECR. So we can actually go there and just go to, we can tear down. That's it. So I'm just going to go here and do Terraform destroy. So just so you know, if you're part of my website, you will see the code. You also see the video, right? So the video is just to tell you how things fit in into the, more or less like how things fit in watching a video, but the code is also here that reproduces exactly what I did, right? Basically, so if you want to see infra as code as it translates to everything I've done today, it's here. But again, infra as code is not magic. It's basically your understanding of the console that you're translating to infrastructure as code. So the knowledge of both of them is good. I always tell people, understand how things are done in the console, and then from there, it's just basically easy for you to put it as infra as code, right? Any infra as code tool that you want, whether it's Terraform, Pulumi, AWS CDK, whatever tool you want to use, you can basically use it. But it's all there for you to use. Okay. Let me actually see. I think so. We just need to do Terraform destroy. Basically, that will tear down stuff for us. And I think I also like it this way because sometimes it's hard for you to tear down things manually, right? So let's try and just tear it down. It's just going to tear everything down for us to see. Once it's down, then I think we should be good to go. I'm sure by now, if I refresh this, maybe it's not going to work again. This one is also not going to work because some things are already being torn down. So the NAT gateway is going to go, the VPC is going to go. So let's give it some time. It's destroying the load balancer. So I'm just going to go to the ECR and then just remove those images that we uploaded, right? So container, we'll go to the repository, clean this one, just delete the images so that the repo can actually delete. I'm going to go to the repo, go here and delete it so that IAC can actually finish. But again, I think we actually created the repo outside of IAC, so that should work on its own. I don't think we need that to do, but let's give it time. It's going to tear everything down. Always remember to clean up your resources. Just make sure you're always checking your account. If you need it, you should keep it. But if you don't need it, just tear it down. So let's wait for it to tear down. Once it's done, then I can take questions. But I hope you found it useful. And yeah, it's one of those. This is basically not. I don't know what I want to say. I don't want to say. This is not. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I think it's just a concept that you have to grasp. For blue-green deployment, teardown is manual. Teardown is not manual. Teardown is not manual. Teardown is bake time. I showed you. Bake time is what controls teardown. So if you say 0, means once it rolls traffic to production, it tears down. If you say 10 minutes, it's going to wait 10 minutes. That's exactly what we saw. That's why it's still there. It's not tearing down. The word is bake time. Bake time. Bake time is I've shifted traffic to production. How long should I wait for me to tear it down? So if you say you want to wait 30 minutes, it's your own business use case that will determine. So these things, and that's why it's different. You can say you know something, but sometimes where you get the real experience is when you are doing it live, because you're seeing the decision that is leading you to choosing one pattern as opposed to the other, right? So bake time could be, maybe you want to keep some things around. Maybe there's something you want to do. So it depends. Some people will keep bake time to short. Some people will say 10 minutes later or 30 minutes time, tear it down for us. Remember, these things also have their own cost implications because you're running green and blue. Both of them are containers, right? So cost is also a thing. It's also something you need to take note of. You're always welcome. Questions, honestly, questions are the things that fuel these kind of conversations. Because if you don't ask questions, I feel questions are really what shows that we're actually learning together, we're building together, we're growing together, and we're basically understanding the concept. So, like I said, if you're on this live stream, make sure you're part of my website. That's really where this video is going to land. At the end of the day, the code is also going to be there if you really want to see the code implementation. But again, the video is really there in case you want to do it in the console first. Show yourself that I can do it in the console. And then you can use the code also to bring it up. Ideally, the code I write there, already complete code, it shows you how everything can just be Terraform apply and everything comes up, right? And that's why you saw at the beginning, I was kind of commenting some things because these things that I commented are the things we now had to do manually, right? And that's because those are the things that are new compared to the things that I've already taught before, right? I think we've already seen how we can package our own container locally, push it to ECR. We've seen how we can set up ECS and how it connects to the load balancers. All that, I can't be coming here and be teaching you again every time, right? So, and that's why today was really about deployment and the different options and how you can tune them to your use case, depending on how your business works, right? So you can't live, I'm not going to tell you everything. And that's the whole idea. I'm just giving you a mindset. And that mindset is enough. If you have the right, see, DevOps is a mindset. That's the way I see it. It's not about the skill. The skill is, I always tell people the skill is always the least of the things. Skill is good, but the mindset is what you need. The mindset is what will take you really, really far. And what I'm preaching here or what I'm really promoting is the mindset. Right? Look at things, understand why you're doing things a certain way, and you can pretty much go from there. So honestly, Terraform is done destroying whatever it needs to destroy. So if I refresh these, target groups are still there. I think because I created this green target group on my own, so probably it's not covered under Terraform, but I'm just going to delete it. Target group is gone. If I check my load balancers, there's no load balancer again. There's no target group again. Everything is gone. So that brings us to the end of the class. I'm going to get the videos more or less uploaded on the website. You'll find it on the website. You find everything here as a complete post with a link to the video for you to see. So if you're not on that website, You have to be part of it, right? You can see, yeah, you have to just be part of it. But that brings us to the end of today's this thing. The major goal we achieved is we took what we've already built before and we added deployment on top of it, just so that you understand service to service communication is one thing, but what about if you want to deploy? What happens? People are already using your application. How can you make that seamless experience, developer like the user's experience? How you ship traffic? Those decisions, it's different from organization to organization. So your use case, sometimes some applications, the way they are built, does not support like two versions running the same time, maybe because of one has to do migration. So it just depends on your use case, right? But just know that these are all possible. And yeah, I hope I've been able to do justice. So I'm going to stop the recording now.